Hello YouTube, welcome to my second video ever. Today we're going to be doing a card review on Prodigy. If you don't know me, I am Heart of the Cards. I go by Heart of the Cards Snap, and I am a Marvel Snap player. I'm currently ranked within the top 5 of Infinite, meaning I am one of the best players in the global landscape, and as well in North America, I think I am currently ranked either ranked 2 or 3 in the entire server, which means I am a very qualified person to be talking about this subject. So this card review will be on Prodigy. If you don't know what Prodigy does, he is an on reveal. If this card is in the back row, copy the text of the card in front of it. He is a 3/4 in cost. So basically, in the simplest way we can break this down is pretend there are 4 quadrants for this. Quadrant 1 will be strengths, that checkbox on our screen. Quadrant 2 will be weaknesses, which is on the second box on our screen. Quadrant 3 will be timing, or third box on the screen. And quadrant 4 will be counters, or fourth box on the screen. So how Prodigy will work is, let's say a card was in the first quadrant, or strengths. Prodigy will be able to copy that card only if he was in the timing quadrant, meaning he literally copies the card in front of it. Likewise, Prodigy would place where the counters quadrant is, or the fourth quadrant. He would copy the card above it, which is the weaknesses quadrant, or the second quadrant. So that's how Prodigy will work. The strength of Prodigy is he is a copy card. You can think of cards similar to him in nature as being Copycat, Esme, Mystique to some sense, and Moonstone even to some sense. But also Frigga would be another card. In the cases of Frigga and Esme, notably they have a weakness of they have an additional energy cost, meaning for Frigga you have to pay for the card you copy again, and for Esme you pay a 3/4 to play another 3/4, which is a notable cost, where Prodigy is able to just copy that directly without paying the second cost over again. Also notably, he has a strong base stat line, which is a 3/4, and if you're copying a high value target, the strong base stat line would be a 3/4 plus whatever extra stats the card gives you. So Prodigy really wants these cards to add extra stats to that forward slot. The weaknesses, these will take a lot of timing and foresight to use, because you're going to have to basically, he's an endgame card that you need to set up in the early game, and he will take a lot of time to use. And also, notably, he goes very tall in a single lane, so single lane tech cards like Juggernaut, Negasonic, or just tech cards that can generally bully a single type of card like Enchantress might be particularly worrying to Prodigy, as well as cards like a Bully Move. The way I view Prodigy personally is he has a similar timing to Sage, but he's a lot more synergistic, meaning he's a card you want to play on 5 or 6, but unlike Sage being a general beast in that 5 or 6 slot, just because that's her personality and like how she's set up, he's not a general beast. He will be a very specific beast in these certain types of decks that have these high value targets that will allow him to pop off later in the game. The counters to him are single lane tech cards, whether that is like Enchantress, who can bully a similar type of card, or just tech cards that can kind of disrupt his ability to go into that third or fourth slot. And Bully Move, which will mix up where Prodigy is copying, so he might not end up copying the high value target because they moved it, because they moved the way the lane looks. So for the type of deck Prodigy will be in, I predict he will be in probably some type of Surfer deck and some type of ongoing deck. I'll speak on both decks a bit more in the future. First, I just want to go over some key considerations for any general deck building you might do. So the first thing you should consider in a Prodigy deck is how often can he just be played as a value play? Can he hit that 3/6 to 3/8 sweet spot that a lot of 3-drops are hitting to be considered a good point value play? 3/8 being something like a Gladiator being considered a value play is really good. Gladiator is not really a synergistic card, that's like a good static card. Something like a Negasonic usually hits at least a 3/6 in value. You consider that, you can consider Prodigy something like that. So can he hit that mark is the first thing to consider. Next, Prodigy is a complicated card, and he's a card that can only be played late. He's not a 3-drop that can be played on 3, so he needs to have another reason. He can't just be a good value play. He has to have something more. Like Sage is a good value play plus some, because she's not only a 3/8, often she's like a 3/10, a 3/12. You can have those pop-offs. So does Prodigy have those pop-offs in your decks? That is something you will need to justify him. And then another thing Prodigy will very much like, not necessarily necessary, but he'll very much like, is board control. Because a lot of pressure is taken off Prodigy if other cards can fill or manipulate the fill of lanes. For this, I think of something like Fenris. Fenris being able to basically be 2 cards in any slots you want will help out Prodigy. And something that obviously helps out Prodigy and generally going to make Prodigy a lot better is Sam Wilson, because that shield can go anywhere, allowing you to really manipulate where the Prodigy will go and what cards he can copy. So those are some high value cards that will definitely work well with him. In terms of deck building cost, I think mostly you need to consider that Prodigy is a late game card. You can't really play him on turn 3, so you will need other turn 3 plays, and Prodigy will be more towards your end game. So he very much takes up a slot as an end game 3 drop, which are a lot less versatile than early game and late game 3 drop. A card that can play in either role. Notably, his deck building cost will require at least 1 space filler in my opinion. This isn't that great of a deck building cost now because Sam Wilson is such a great card, but he will become more reliant on something like a Sam Wilson or Fenris Wolf in the future if they are not as good as they are currently. And the general power level of space fillers will definitely affect Prodigy's play rate. Lastly, Prodigy wants low power cards, so the stronger the state of low power cards is, the more targets Prodigy has that are very well suited for him. Why he wants low power cards is generally low power cards have more ongoing or green power that they give out to other people, meaning Prodigy will benefit from that far more than just a high power static card like Gladiator, because Prodigy doesn't want to copy something like that effect. In terms of Prodigy Surfer, why I think this will be strong is because it has value plays. If you look at Prodigy Surfer, something like a US Agent isn't that bad to copy, and Negasonic is a really solid value play, and it also has high rolls. If you think of something like a Captain Carter, he's playing for a 312 at minimum, because Captain Carter will make him a 3/6 that buffs the other card, so he'll be a 312 at minimum. And you can even get a pop-off if you Silver Surfer both of them. Captain Carter, the original, will be a 3/4 that gives 2 to the back, so she'll become a 312, and then Prodigy will become a 320 because he'll effectively be a 310 that buffs the other card. So that will be a very big pop-off lane. And to a lesser degree, Galactus is also a big pop-off lane. At minimum, Prodigy will then be playing for a 310, which is very good stats. But with something like a Brood, he will go to like a 315, or my math might be wrong, but he'll go to like a 316, I believe, which will be a lot of points. The same thing with Carter in terms of the stats, like a 315, which is a lot of points to put up for a single card, especially for a 3-cost card that is way above the stat line, the regular stat line of 3-drop. And you're not really giving up too much to run him, in my opinion. Now, for something like Prodigy Ongoing has a lot of value plays. Notably, it has more value plays than even Surfer. Ant-Man's a good hit. Captain America's a good hit. Rafona's not a bad hit. Goliath can be considered either a high roll or a good hit. Something like a Captain Carter is a great hit. Something like an Iron Man's a great hit. Depending on how much you can get of those. There are a bunch of very good value plays or high rolls. Something like a Captain Carter will probably be your high roll. Something like Goliath could be considered either a high roll or just a good play, but I feel like Prodigy Ongoing in Ethos has a very strong play because basically almost all the ongoing cards you want to hit. Even something like this list doesn't run a Mr. Fantastic, but if you were to put Mr. Fantastic in that list, that's also that could arguably be a high roll or it could just be a value play. Either way, it's putting up a lot of points. It would make Prodigy effectively like a 311, if not more, with a Moonstone. Well, no, Prodigy would be a 310 in that case, if not more, with a Moonstone. So yeah, there's definitely some value plays and high rolls because Moonstone can also buff up Prodigy, so there is definitely some sort of high rolls you can get in this Prodigy Ongoing list, as well as value plays, which is really important. In terms of board control, it has a bit less board control, but it's very much still a deck that's running Sam Wilson and loves to run Sam Wilson, which will make it more board control, and Spectrum will still buff Prodigy because he will become an ongoing after copying the effect. So these two lists, I think, in Ethos have 2 different ways to make Prodigy a very good card, but I think both of them will be running effectively as they are both Captain Carter lists, and notably Captain Carter is a really good card to Prodigy. Just a little bit of a note, I think that the Prodigy Surfer list is better in terms of board control because you can manipulate Sam Wilson and Fenris, but it's worse a bit in the terms of targets, where Prodigy Ongoing might be a bit better in targets, but it has a bit less board control, making Prodigy maybe a bit harder to hit exactly what you want, but he has more general things you can hit. So I believe Prodigy Surfer will be a bit harder to play. Prodigy Ongoing will be a bit easier to play, but Prodigy Surfer might be more beneficial because there are those really good pop-offs that you can approach from different ways. So now going into Prodigy and how I rate him as a card, I believe Prodigy is, in terms of flexibility, not too good, but I feel like he will have his homes and there will be more than one of them. I feel like generally Prodigy has a lot of deck building costs, which means he won't go everywhere, but he will go into homes that especially have board control or pretty high value targets. In terms of competitiveness, I believe Prodigy will be the best in slot in at least 1 to 2 competitive decks, because he'll be able to, in my opinion, double as both a value play on most games, as well as just having these high rolls that the deck otherwise doesn't have access to, making him an extremely strong play. However, I believe Prodigy will be extremely difficult to play. I feel like it will require a lot of high-level card placement early on in the game, and it will be very easy to make mistakes with him. But that doesn't necessarily make him a bad card, that just makes him hard to play. So overall, taking this all into consideration, I think Prodigy will be a really strong card in the right hands. However, in the general player base, I feel like Prodigy might hit a bit lower because his requirement for you to play cards in a very specific way won't mesh with everyone, and it'll also take a lot of getting used to setting up Prodigy lanes from the early game to the late game to actually get those payouts on a more consistent level. Thank you all for watching. If you guys don't know, I stream on Twitch, and I stream pretty much 5 days a week except for hot location days because I do not quite enjoy hot locations. You can check me out at twitch.tv, Heart of the Cards, and I will probably be streaming Prodigy when he comes out. And I regularly stream Silver Surfer decks that I enjoy at a very high level. So if you enjoy that type of content and want to check me out on Twitch, go check me out there. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.